Camping had always been my escape. The solitude of nature, the crackling campfire, the whisper of the wind through the trees. It was my sanctuary. So, when life in the city became too much, I packed my gear and headed for Blackwood Forest, a place I'd never been but had heard much about. Nestled deep in the Appalachian Mountains, it promised isolation and peace. I arrived in the late afternoon, setting up camp near a small clearing by a creek. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced and flickered in the firelight. As the darkness settled in, an eerie stillness took over the forest, broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl. I was roasting marshmallows, enjoying the serenity, when I first sensed it, something watching me from the darkness. The feeling was so intense that I froze, marshmallow forgotten, and peered into the trees. There was nothing but darkness and the familiar shapes of the forest, yet the sensation of being watched persisted. Shrugging it off as paranoia, I returned to my tent, zipping it up tightly behind me. Sleep came slowly, as every rustle and snap outside seemed amplified in the silent night. Finally, exhaustion claimed me, and I drifted off. I awoke to an unnatural silence. The usual night sounds had ceased entirely. No wind, no rustling leaves, nothing. My heart pounded as I lay there, straining to hear anything. Then, there it was, a soft, almost rhythmic scraping sound, like claws on the tree bark. I unzipped the tent just enough to peer out. My breath caught in my throat. There, on the edge of the clearing, stood a figure, tall, gaunt, and utterly wrong. Its limbs were elongated, too thin and too long, its movements jerky and unnatural. The moonlight revealed no details, only the silhouette of a nightmare. I wanted to scream, but fear choked the sound in my throat. The creature turned its head towards me, and I felt its eyes, though I couldn't see them, boring into me. My body trembled uncontrollably as I slowly zipped the tent back up, praying it hadn't seen me. The scraping sound grew louder, closer. I could hear its breath now, ragged and wet. My mind raced. What was it? Some urban legend come to life. A creature from a story meant to scare children. None of it made sense, but the terror was real. It stopped right outside my tent. I held my breath, every muscle tensed. The fabric of the tent rustled, as if something was running its fingers across it. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out everything else. Seconds felt like hours. Then, just as suddenly as it had arrived, the presence withdrew. The forest sounds slowly returned, and I realized I had been holding my breath. Gasping for air, I waited, not daring to move until the first light of dawn peeked through the trees. When I finally emerged, there were no signs of the creature, no evidence of the terror I had faced. I packed up my camp with shaking hands, refusing to spend another moment in that cursed place. I never spoke of what I saw. Who would believe me? But the memory haunts me, and every night, in the quiet moments before sleep, I hear that scraping sound and wonder if it's still out there, watching, waiting. When I was a boy, my friends and I loved camping in the forest behind my grandmother's house. It was a dense, shadowy place, filled with the creaks and whispers of ancient trees. Under the supervision of our parents, we would set up our tents far enough away to feel the thrill of independence, but close enough to the house for safety. There was one place, though, that even the bravest among us dared not approach: the old well. Legend had it that the well was haunted by an apparition known as the Children's Keeper. The story went that many years ago, a tragic accident had claimed the lives of several children who had been playing near the well. Since then, their spirits, guided by the keeper, lured other children to join them in their watery grave. One cool autumn night, we gathered around our campfire, the flickering flames casting eerie shadows on our faces. We had heard the stories 100 times, but that night, something felt different. Maybe it was the wind howling through the trees, or the way the darkness seemed to press in on us. But the legend of the children's keeper seemed more real than ever. "I dare you to go to the well," Tommy whispered, his voice trembling slightly. My heart pounded. I wanted to prove my bravery, but the thought of the well sent chills down my spine. "Fine," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'll go." Armed with a flashlight, I crept towards the well, the cold night air biting at my skin. The others followed at a distance, their faces pale in the dim light. The well stood like a dark sentinel, its stone walls covered in moss and grime. As I approached, the air grew colder, and a sense of dread settled over me. I peered over the edge, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The water at the bottom was black and still, reflecting the light like a mirror. Suddenly, a face appeared in the water, pale, with hollow eyes staring back at me. I stumbled back, my scream catching in my throat. Before I could react, a hand, cold and wet, grabbed my ankle, pulling me towards the well. I fought desperately, kicking and thrashing, but the grip was relentless. The ghostly figure began to emerge, its ghastly form becoming clearer in the light. My friends rushed forward, their screams echoing in the night, and together we managed to break free and run back to the safety of our campsite. We never spoke of that night again. The well remains a dark memory, a place of forgotten nightmares. Even now, as an adult, the thought of that cold, unyielding grip sends shivers down my spine. The legend of the children's keeper lives on, a warning to all who dare to venture too close to the haunted well. We always loved hiking, my girlfriend Lily and I. It was our escape from the hustle of everyday life. That weekend, we decided to explore a new trail deep within the Whispering Pines forest, known for its beauty and seclusion. We set off early, the sun casting long shadows through the trees. As the hours passed, we realized we had strayed far from the marked path. The dense canopy above obscured the sky, and the once inviting forest became a labyrinth of towering pines and tangled underbrush. The unease crept in slowly, a gnawing fear that we were truly lost. The light began to fade, and the forest took on a sinister air. In our desperation to find a way out, we stumbled upon an old, decrepit village. The buildings were rotting husks, overgrown with vines and moss. It felt like stepping back in time, to a place long forgotten by the world. "This place gives me the creeps," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. I nodded, feeling the same chill. There was something off, something deeply wrong about the village. As we walked through the narrow, winding streets, we saw shadows moving in the windows of the abandoned houses. At first, we thought it was our minds playing tricks, but the shadows seemed deliberate, almost sentient. We heard whispers, faint and indistinct, like the village itself was alive and trying to communicate. In the center of the village stood an old well, its stone walls covered in strange, ancient ruins. As we approached, the air grew colder. Lily peered over the edge and gasped, stumbling back. "I saw something down there," she said, her face pale. "Something moving." A low guttural growl echoed from the depths of the well, sending a jolt of terror through us. We ran, our footsteps echoing through the empty streets, the whispers growing louder, more urgent. The village seemed to twist and shift around us, making it hard to find our way out. Finally, we broke free from the village's grasp, bursting through the tree line and onto a highway. Gasping for breath, we flagged down a passing car, the driver eyeing us warily as we babbled about the village and the things we had seen. We never went back to Whispering Pines. The memories of that day still haunt us, and sometimes, in the dead of night, I hear the whispers and see the shadows, wondering if we ever truly escaped.